Welcome to the Markets Happy Hour podcast, a weekly markets update for investors the world over. Each week we discuss inflation, geopolitics, interest rates, equity markets, and other asset classes. To try to answer the question, what does this mean for my investment portfolio? Let's dive in.
Is this not a time for Europe to unite? We've just had a seismic election result here. We'll discuss that. It can be discussed in Hungary. Will this galvanize the middle powers in terms of some of their globalization, that their need to have alliances, or will it have the opposite effect?
So I think globalization is far from done. Globalization was embraced aggressively. It was never managed, let alone well. A case in point was one of the first outsourcing entities or events in the UK was a group called Electrium. It was owned by Sinven. It was electrical components, and they outsourced to China. Why did they outsource to China? Because the FD was taking his wife there to try and patch up the marriage, and ended up in Hong Kong and discovered that he could get his components made for a fraction of the cost. That was the only reason. It was a fluke. Siemens bought Electrium to do outsourcing. And I asked the guy, why didn't you go to Mexico or Brazil? The answer was, well, I didn't know Mexico and Brazil. I knew China, and they bought me to do outsourcing. So the US ended up outsourcing to China for a mistake. It was just because he was taking his wife to Hong Kong to try and fix things because he wanted to go there. It's serendipitous, but it was also bloody wrong. Go back 10 years ago, Mexican labour costs were 20% lower than China. It's now about 30%. If they're getting shale gas from the US, their energy costs are 50% lower than China getting oil from Russia. And if you want to import or export goods to the US, it's about 90% cheaper to do that from Mexico than it is from China. So there's a lot of reassessing what's happened. You've then got other aspects like Trump limiting the H-1B visas and saying you've got to pay 100 grand per annum to get someone in. Well, they're not going to do that.
It's not per annum.
Sorry?
It's a one-off charge.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's already had the trigger. It means that people are not coming to the US, they're staying there. And as AI has developed and as internet connectivity has developed, people don't need to come. So the fact that they're not migrating so much isn't actually an indication of less globalization. It's an indication of doing globalization a little bit more efficiently. And globalization is getting more efficient. Supply lines, we see a lot of the energy transition is about energy security, and that's going to happen. There are benefits to that, but this is all about globalizing more efficiently, because at the moment, to date, it's just been random and it's not been organized. Now it's getting much better.
Is there a case for saying that because they're going to be almost two worlds, a bipolar world with one based around America, one based around China?
Personally, I think that Trump is doing everything he possibly can to promote Europe and potentially Russia as well. I think it's going to be the EU. It's going to be centered around Western Europe. It'll be a tripolar, and it's going to be a multipolar world going forward. I mean, I know it's a long way behind, but you've got a lot more cooperation between African countries. You've got a lot more connectivity between those countries in road and tiny bit of rail, but there is more trade and more freedom of movement of labour, and they're progressing that way.
And a lot of that gets to the resilience point. I mean, why is China in Africa? Because of the need to source commodities and resilience. So I think that's the point. I suppose my question to push back on this resilience point, is this new? Or has it always been thus? That we know we have cybersecurity with Mythos being caged for 100 days to check on that. It seems that it's not that anyone has been blasé about their firewalls and their security. Is this really a new phenomenon, or is it just more of the same?
More of the same.